a great honour for me to be here today with Ballyfermot man, Tom Phelan, a man of many talents, composer, multi-instrumentalist, and Tom is also a Jesuit brother. So firstly, Tom, I'd like to say thank you for taking the time out of your day to talk to us today.
It's Sunday.
It's Sunday. It's your rest day.
Yeah, it's relaxing.
It's relaxing. So tell me, Tom, what's your earliest memories of Ballyfermot and growing up there?
The earliest memories I would have, I know a vague recollection of attending the Dominican school for high infants, I think it was. And then, so that would be one of my, I can remember that. And then I can remember going to Mary Queen of Angels. Okay. I was there for several years, never met an angel in it, but apart from that it was a good old school. So that would be kind of just in terms of composition of place, if you like, but there are other little memories I'd have of you know, running down where the shopping centre is, and there was all these hills up and down. It was just all muck at the time, you know. And so we were climbing those hills on the way down to the church, because Matthews wasn't there. It was the one on the big roundabout, and so small things like that. One of the memories I would have is I think it was probably around 10 or 12 years of age. I don't know what happened in between those years, but between 10 and 12 years of age, I was in the Scouts in Merchants Quay, and I loved music because the Furies just lived around the corner, and the boys, if they weren't home, there was always records blasting out the thing, and Ted was there, and it was a great music place. So I had a great love of Irish music. I think I was the only one in our house who had never bought a Beatles record. All my were folk scene or folk music and that kind of thing from a young age. And I was practicing the practice chanter for the bagpipes, because when I joined the Scouts they had a band, and it was just, I could get a free practice chanter to practice on, and I could get free pipes when I learned. So that was, I said, well, I'll try that. So I was playing that, and I remember practicing on the chanter at home, and there was a knock at the door, and it was the man who was collecting he used to rent the televisions at that stage, and so there was a man collecting the weekly rent for the television, and he says, is that someone playing a chanter in there? And my ma said, yeah, young Thomas. So he said, bring him out to me. So I brought him out to me. And he said to me, he says, you're only learning? I says, yeah. He says, now I want you to go down to Lough Terrace to Tommy Moore, my brother-in-law, and so you tell him I sent you down. And so eventually I did. The following week I think I went down, picked up the courage, didn't know who this Tommy Moore fella was. But Tommy was he was a great musician. He was a Nillan piper, a Highland piper, a fiddle player. He was a world champion, an Irish champion on the uilleann pipes, and he was also a solo champion on the Highland pipes. So he was a great man, and so he took me under his wing, and it became, I didn't know where home was. And my ma wasn't home. I used to run down to Bridie Moore. I said, Brian, my ma's not in. Come on in, I'll give you something to eat, you know. So it was a great household. Finbar had been down there, Paddy Keenan, you know, and now the Fintan Lawler band that I ended up playing with eventually. He was the pipe sergeant in that, and he would have taught a lot of the top pipers that were around at that time, you know. So that really got me into music, and so I remember that much about my childhood. Was that, and I was interested. I used to play a bit of football. Mr. Doyle, who collected the pool's money, he ran Longview, so we ended up playing with Longview, you know. So there was things like that. So yeah, I think I never fell in love with Ballyfermot initially. I always felt like that old song, Little Boxes, all made out of ticky-tacky ones and all looked the same. And that was Ballyfermot, and I remember my father and a lot of other people, their concept was we're stuck with these little boxes, but we can make them better, we can make things better. And so for me Ballyfermot became the people then. Yes. That it was the people in Ballyfermot, there was great people like, for me, in music wise, the Keenans, I used to be up in Labray Park with them, with old Johnny, young Paddy, Brendan, Thomas, all those, the Furies, Sammy Lawless from Oranmore Road. He was a piper in the Fitton Lawler band eventually with me. So it was that, So that's...
Right. And tell me, Tom, you left Ballyfermot then somewhere in around the 70s. Was that to join the Jesuits, to become a Jesuit brother? Or?
Yeah, I did. I was in 76, but before that, I went to school in Mary Queen of Angels, and then I went to what was it a comprehensive or something they called it? The Kylemore College. What was it before that? Vocational school.
Yeah,
vocational school, so I went there. And then I left and I went working. I got a job in Phelan's in Talbot Street in a tailoring place. And then I got an offered to go to O'Reilly's, which I did, was another place, North Earl Street, only up the road. And then Bob Keogh coached me into going to working with him in Lee Brothers. So I went to him, and then I ended up working for Moran and Flynn in Capel Street. Even Stevens was the big mod shop at the time. And so things were going well, I had a good job, everything else, but I was involved in trade unionism. I might have picked that up from my dad a little bit. But I was the shop steward in Moran and Flynn's, and I decided I didn't know enough really about this, so I ended up going to the College of Industrial Relations, which eventually was a Jesuit place, and it eventually became the Irish College or something. It's still there down in the financial centre. And so that's where I met the Jesuits, and I was there for a couple of years, studying industrial relations, trade union law, all that sort of thing. And I suppose in some way I couldn't understand the church. I was a bit anti-clerical. Some people still say I am in this house. Okay. But some of the experience I would have had with the church grinded with me, but it was when I met the Jesuits, some individual Jesuits there in the college, it was the first time that anyone had ever related the Gospels, the Scriptures, with everyday living. And so I was very impressed with them. And I started taking a little bit more interest in my own faith, because now it was relating to everyday life as I could now understand it. And so, the thought came into my head about joining the Jesuits, and I kept pushing it aside. I was going out with a girl from Walkinstown at the time, and I was having a great time. I was in the band, the pipe band, and I was enjoying life. I had a good wage. And I think I even had a stall in Mead Street on the side.
Really? How old were you at this time, Tom?
At the time that I joined the Jesuit, I was 22.
Okay.
And at that time, it probably would have been seen as a little bit of a late vocation. But I couldn't get it out of my system. So I went talking to a couple of Jesuits about it, and I was sent to see other Jesuits and had interviews and all that sort of stuff. And eventually I was accepted for the novitiate. And then I said to myself, give it 3 months, I'll be out, you know. So I remember I had a lovely big motorbike, and a next girlfriend of mine was back from England celebrating her 21st or something, and I had remained friends with her family down in Kilcullen. And I remember getting the invite, and I said, I might go down to that, you may as well, be the last few pints or whatever. So I went down there, and she went back to England, but myself and her brother were still celebrating our birthday about 4 or 5 days later. And we ran out of money. So I came back to Dublin and I sold my bike on condition that your man loaned it to me for a few days. So we went back down and had a good old fling before I went off into the Jesuits. So.
And when you joined up, then did you have to study, or what was it all about?
Well, you've studied, from time you go in, you have what they call a novitiate, and during that time you would be doing some study, and then when you're finished a novitiate, you're approved for vows or whatever, and then you go on to study more. I went to Milltown, and I was supposed to do 2 years there on theology, and 1 year into it, the provincial from Zambia was over, and I was introduced to him, and he asked me would I come out, and I said, well, sure, I'm studying, you know. So I went to see the provincial, and he says, oh, you need to go if you want. So I went out to Zambia for a couple of years, and I must tell you this now, this is interesting. There was a football team, and I was based in a place called Namwala out in the sticks, out in the bush. Lovely people, lovely people. But they had a football team, and they were called the Blue Eagles. They had no boots, and they had white shorts and t-shirts, red t-shirts. And I wrote to someone, and he knew someone in the Dublin camp, and they sent out the Dublin strip, a full Dublin strip. And it was the first time they were ever in blue. And it was all the full Dublin trip from Africa. And they were all Africans in this, you know. And so life was good there, enjoyed that. And after finishing in Africa, I came back and I went to Canada for a year for a cram course on social development and cooperatives and all that sort of stuff, to a diploma course there. So that was in Francis Xavier University in Antigonish in Nova Scotia. And I came back then, and I was heading back to Africa, and the provincial says, would I do 3 years in Ballyfermot? They were stuck, so they were starting a parish there. So I went working with Kevin O'Rourke and Jesuit, and we started the parish, and I started Happen Shoot Centre out there. I was involved in community work. So I was there for a few years, and then I said, now that's it, I can head to Africa now. And now the provincial wanted me to go down to Tullamore. So we had a place down there called Ratton. It was a retreat house about 6 miles from Tullamore. And I was in Tullamore one night, and I heard pipes, and so we went to investigate it, and there was a little pipe band practicing in a tiny little place above a pool hall. So I went up and had a listen to them and that sort of thing, and they said to me, do you play? I said, I used to. I hadn't played in a few years at that stage. So anyway, they handed me a set of pipes and I started playing. So then I got involved with the Tullamore band, and I ended up teaching the Tullamore band. Then I was pipe major of it, and I knew I wouldn't be there forever. So then my objective, and Tommy Moore was always on about this: take the front row, be pipe major, and walk to the back row. So I trained up someone to become pipe major, and I became pipe sergeant, and eventually I was in the back row playing. And when I left, they were going well at that time, you know.
Did they enter competitions and stuff? Or?
They did, yeah. I think when I was pipe sergeant, we got second in the Edinburgh Festival in Scotland, and we took a while for them to get up to standard, but they were getting there. And then I went off on my way, and the band broke up for a while, and then they came back together, and it must have been about maybe 8-10 years later. They went to the World Championships, and they got first prize in their grade. They won the World Championships in their grade. So they asked me down. They wanted me to go and play with them, and I said, no, I'm too old for that. So, but I went down and presented a medalist to them and all that, you know. So that's, we travelled, is it? I think, yeah. They took Ballyfermot. Oh,
Did
yeah.
you go back to Zambia?
No, I never got back.
You never got back, okay.
No, I ended up in, we have a third year, what they call tertianship. And this is before they give you final vows, you have to do a full year of this study and all that sort of thing. So I was sent to Australia. And I was in Australia for 12 months, and out there, apart from the study and that sort of thing, the music was great because it got you involved with other local musicians and people like that. Like when I went out, I had a card a fella gave to me in Scotland one time, and he was a pipe maker. He made lowland pipes. And he said, if you're ever in Australia, look me up. And I just threw it in my pipe box. It was still there when I was gone to Australia. Oh, yeah. So I looked them up. I landed in Australia on a Tuesday, and on Wednesday I was a member of the Sydney Pipers Society. And just in, and then I ended up having a radio program out there. And I had the honour of interviewing Jimmy Steins, who was a great Dublin player who took Australia by storm as a player out there. And they've even got a statue to him now out there. He'd done a lot of work with young people, you know. Nice. So you meet interesting people.
Mm. So from Australia then, take us back to Ireland.
Oh yeah, I came back, didn't I? Yeah, I came back. When I came back, I went to the provincial, and he was talking to me. They wanted me, I was working in a prison in Australia as well, and they wanted me to stay out there for a year, and I got in touch with the provincial, and he says, come home and we'll talk about it. And so when I came back, I went to see him. Phelan was the provincial at the time, and he says to me, well, tell me about this prison work, what you want. You know, I said, well, so I feel like I can wait an hour telling you. But he says, have you other plans for me? Well, see, really I'm stuck here, I need someone here. And I said, okay, so well, what's the point in talking about Australia, you know, if I'm not going back? So there was 3 places he wanted me. And I can't remember 3 of them, but one was Glencross. The other one was Gardiner Street, and there was another one. And then I said to him, well, which is your priority? And he said, well, my priority would be Gardiner Street, but I want you to be happy there too. And so if that's your priority, I'll go there. So I went to Gardiner Street then, and I got stuck there, gladly stuck. I loved the people in the inner city for 27 years. So, yeah, so it was 27 years there, and then after the 27 years there, and yet again music came into it for me because I was asked to help. This was in 1992 when I came back, and I was asked to help get a children's mass going. And when I was looking for musicians, I couldn't find any that actually lived in the parish. all the people working in the church were from outside of the parish. And I said, there's something missing here. So I said to myself, we'll have to do something about music. And I went over to, one day I went over to Charlie Bourne, who had a music shop in Stephen Street. And I was saying to Charlie, and I knew Charlie well, because I worked beside him in the other branch of even Stevens. And I was saying to Charlie, I says, I was thinking of trying to do something with music for these kids, you know. There isn't enough music around the area. And he says to me, well, if you get something going, he says, I'll give you 10 or 12 guitars. And I said, that's great. So when I came back, I was walking up the steps into Gardiner Street Church, and this girl stopped me and she says to me, do you know Eamon? And I said, no, I don't know Eamon. Well, Eamon is, he's a great guitar player, you know, he's playing the folk. So yeah. And I said, well, I'm starting something. He said, well, I go home on weekend. He was from Tipperary, I think, I think it was Tip, or Kerry. And I said, well, I'm not looking for you at the weekend, I'm looking for you during the week. So that was my first instructor, and then I got the guitars, and then a fella called Martin McMahon walked in one day looking for me, and I couldn't believe it because Martin was a great guitar player, and I met him in Ballymun. We worked together in Ballymun. So he came in, and before we knew it, we had 74 kids and 8 instructors. So that went for 20 odd years as well, you know. So, yeah, so that was it, and then it was down here.
So tell me, Tom, all these parishes and which you did in Zambia and all, it was all community development. Was it mainly working with younger people?
By and large, with younger people in Ballymun it would have been younger people. In Zambia I would have started, would have been involved in young school leavers. So people who had left school in Zambia, and at this stage they went into a training project, and there was a nun called Sister Christina O'Brien, and she ran these projects. And when I got into it, I remember saying to myself, this is great, but I also experienced that some of the girls had to earn money in a way that I wouldn't like anyone's daughter had to earn money. And I said, there's something wrong here. So she had given me this project to develop and do what I want with it. And I said, we have to start jobs. We have to start, there has to be something better than just training them. And they all were learning a bit of religion and English and the sewing and all that sort of thing. And so I looked at a couple of things that were going well, and I said to them, right, there was a fellow who used to sit on outside a beer hall, and our shop's there and the beer hall beside it, and you'd go in and buy a material and you'd bring it out to Pirio and you'd say to him, make me a shirt, and he'd measure you and he'd make the shirt the material. So I said to him, I said, do you make much money at this? And he says, oh yeah, I make a good living. And I said, well, will you come work for me and teach all the girls? So we're going to start a factory. And I says, I guarantee you the same money that you're getting here for the first 3 months. And so if it goes well, you'll triple it. So he came along on board and we started that, this cooperative kind of a thing. And the way we were doing it is that eventually we would move the girls back to their village. They could go back to their village with a sewing machine, and we would bring the work out to them and we train others. So that was the concept. And then we started a piggery. We started 7 fellas on chickens, because it takes 7 weeks to rear chickens, I discovered. So you'd have them ready every 7 weeks, and 1 fella had each batch. So we had things like that going. Yeah, so that was it. And then Tullamore, I worked a little bit of work with FOSS, or whatever you call them now, on cooperatives and helping people set up cooperatives and things like that. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned selling your motorbike. It must have broke your heart to sell your motorbike back.
It did.
Like way back when.
I knew I wasn't going to bring it in with me.
Well, I believe that you're still a keen biker and you'd be going around these charity rallies. Is there any truth in that?
Yes, there is, I'm afraid. Yeah. Well, I had a VTX 1300 and I came off that and damaged the arm. So that was a few years back. And my sister made me promise her when I was in hospital that I wouldn't ride that bike again. And I said I won't. So when I got better, I sold it and I bought another one.
Yeah.
So I was still on the bikes, yeah. I was out with a group yesterday. The Druids have a motorbike club, and I was out with them, and we did a charity run for a young child that needs special treatment. And we have another one then, another big one in September, the end of September, for the Special Olympics. So yeah, I'd still do a few charity runs and that kind of thing. It's great freedom.
It's great freedom.
Yeah.
And Tom, you're based now in Clongowes, so
Yeah.
Can you tell us how long you're here and what's your main role now within the community or within your Jesuit?
Yeah, it's a kind of a funny one, that, in the sense that I came down here in 2017.
Okay.
Yeah, the end of 2017, and the provincial. I was in Gardner Street, and when I finished up in Gardner Street, the provincial says, "We want to give you a sabbatical, and then we have a job lined up for you, but there was going to be a change of provincial, so I want to wait until the new provincial comes in to clarify it." So I said, "Grand." So they asked me to go to Berkeley to do a course, or to go to Australia to do one, or whatever I wanted to do. And I says, "No, I'm not. I'm too tired to go over to Berkeley now and start doing a year study and that sort of thing." So I rang him back and said, "I found a course." And he says, "Where's the course?" I says, "In Henrietta Street, off top of Hazel Street." And he says, "What?" I says, "Yeah." And he says, "Oh," he says, "what's it in?" So I'm going to learn the Uilleann pipes, So he says, and where would you live?" Well, so I'm going to live with the sister. She works all day, so we can have time to practice. So I can't practice in a Jesuit house, she's go mad. So for, I think it was 8 or 9 months, I was out just chilling out and learning to play the pipes. And then I came down here. And the job they gave me, I'm only living here in the sense of, we're very small in numbers here now. We're down to 5 Jesuits because the numbers are decreasing all the time. And the job I have is property management for the whole province. So what that involves is in trying to ensure that the places we're going to keep, some of the decisions would be made higher up, but the places we're going to keep are in good working condition. And we're going to dispose of some places. And so, a bit like supervising buildings. It could be here today, I'm in Wicklow, it could be in Milltown, it could be in Galway. So my work takes me out of the place here, and I do some here. Like we've renovated a lodge and little cottage on the front avenue, and we actually to make proper use of them, because we have properties now that we wouldn't be using as well as we should. We have 2 Ukrainian families living in them. We had 3 big townhouses at the side of Gardiner Street Church, which were used by the pioneers, the Jesuit missions, and wherever. And so we went back into Gardiner Street itself, and we renovated the whole basement, and we moved some of those apostolates into the basement, and that gave us 3 empty townhouses, 3-story. And we gave them to the Peter McVerry Trust for their work with the homeless, which is a better use of it than just sitting there. So that's the kind of work that I'm involved in now at the minute. So it's a bit removed from what I used to do.
Your community work.
Yeah, it's a bit removed from that, but you're still dealing with people, builders, all that sort of thing, you know. Yeah. And I have to say, some of the builders have been, that I've worked with them for years, and they're very good, like, and there was a woman rang me in Dublin, and she couldn't get there was a leak, and she couldn't get anyone to do it, and I rang one of the fellas that would do work for me, and he went down there, and they wouldn't even take a charge for it, you know. Like, you're working with good people too,
yeah,
you know.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, Tom, just before we finish up, I know your dad, Tommy Phelan, was a fantastic community activist in Ballyfermot.
Along with many others.
Along with many others. I know he done an awful lot of work, and your mum as well. I believe that you composed a song for your mum's 1st anniversary.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, my mum, she died, I think it's 13 years now. And my dad was very, like, I said to him, some of them were saying, should we have a memorial card for Mum? And he says, no bother with them. He says, should people only throw them in the back of a drawer? You know? So I got the idea. I was working on a song, and when I did it, just for the family, the CD, the cover was like a memorial card. It was a picture of my mother, the day she was born, the day she died, that sort of thing. And I wrote a song with, I have to say, a couple of people who helped a little bit too on it. Martin Healy, Francie Conway gave advice. So I wrote a song, and it was really just about how she dedicated her life to us and what she gave up. She gave up a lot for us, you know. And so it was called A Mother's Embrace. That's what it was.
And you recorded it with the Martin Healy band, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, the band, we recorded it, and came out on our 1st album. Because I can say that because we have a 2nd album.
Very good. Well, just before we have a listen to A Mother's Embrace, I just want to thank you very much for taking your time today to talk to us on behalf of myself, Sean and Tara, and the Ballyfermot Heritage.
You're very welcome.
And yeah, we'll have a listen to A Mother's Embrace.
How long have I loved her? I remember her face. Memories fill my heart now of my mother's embrace. To the world, nothing special, but to us she was all we could ask for. She was there when we'd fall. Promise me, Ma, you'll watch over me all of your love still present to see. Here in my heart you'll always be. Promise me, Ma, you'll watch over me. Oh, and down through the years now, as we struggle to live, cared not for yourself now, but for us you did give. No career or no headline, no nothing at all. Rearing your children, oh, that was your call. Promise me, Ma, you'll watch over me. All of your love still present to see. Here in my heart you'll always be. Promise me, Ma, you'll watch over me. Oh, and now that you've gone, Ma, and we go on our way, treasuring your memory, each moment, each day. And Dad is still with us, he misses you so, talks to you often, but this you must know. Promise me, Ma, you'll watch over me. All of your love still present to see. Here in my heart you'll always be. Promise me, Ma, you'll watch over me. Promise me, Ma, you'll watch over me. All of your love still present to see. Here in my heart you'll always be. Promise me, Ma, you'll watch over me.